Separate pipeline. We'd have to find another route so that we have the ability to bring more oil to eastern Canada.
A political earthquake is shaking the foundations of Canada. In one corner, Alberta, a province fighting for its economic life, striking a controversial deal with its neighbors.
I think he's been very positive about the idea of having an economic corridor and have all types of projects in there, including pipelines.
In the other, the federal government, determined to assert its constitutional authority and push a national climate agenda. This isn't just about a pipeline. It's a high-stakes standoff that could redefine the very nature of Canadian federalism.
The entire country has changed their approach on major projects of national interest. When we did some polling to find out how people felt about pipelines.
The fight for power, billions of dollars, and the future of the nation's energy is on. Who will win, and at what cost? For years, the energy sector has been a political battleground in Canada. The federal government, under Prime Minister Trudeau's Liberal Party, has pursued policies aimed at transitioning away from fossil fuels, often clashing with the oil-rich province of Alberta. Major pipeline projects like Keystone XL and Northern Gateway have been stalled, delayed, or outright cancelled, leading to a sense of frustration and economic alienation in the West. This has been a source of tension, with Alberta feeling that Ottawa has not only failed to support its most vital industry, but has actively hindered it. Then came the announcement. Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith, revealed that her province had struck a direct deal with a U.S. energy consortium, and crucially, with the support of the Trump administration. The agreement is for the construction of a new oil pipeline, designed to transport Alberta's crude directly to refineries in the American Midwest. The key detail, the one that has truly ignited this firestorm, is that this deal was negotiated and finalized without the knowledge or approval of the federal government in Ottawa. The political reaction was immediate and intense. The federal Liberals, by all accounts, were caught completely off guard. Insiders have reported that no federal agency, cabinet minister, or even the Prime Minister's office had any prior knowledge of the finalized agreement. Within hours of the announcement, chaos reportedly ensued in Ottawa, with cabinet ministers holding an emergency meeting to figure out what had happened, and more importantly, what they could do about it. The opposition, particularly the Conservative Party, was quick to pounce, seizing on the deal as proof of the Liberal government's failure to protect Canada's economy and its energy sector. They framed it as a bold, strategic move by Alberta to secure its economic future in the face of what they describe as federal inaction and hostility. This move by Alberta is being viewed as a direct challenge to the authority of the federal government. While international trade and foreign policy are constitutionally Ottawa's jurisdiction, this deal was cleverly structured to operate within a legal wiggle room. By entering into commercial agreements with private U.S. stakeholders and state-level partners like North Dakota and Montana, Alberta has bypassed the federal government in Washington, making it much harder for Ottawa to claim jurisdiction. This has put the Liberals in an incredibly difficult position. Any attempt to block the pipeline could be seen as an act of overreach and could trigger a constitutional showdown, potentially escalating tensions with the West to an unprecedented level. The deal itself is a comprehensive one. It's not just a handshake agreement. It includes commitments from U.S. investors for pipeline construction, long-term maintenance, and environmental safeguards. This structure means that Alberta is not saddled with the entire financial burden, a significant advantage for the province. The agreement also includes provisions for mutual energy security cooperation, drawing on older concepts like the 2005 Security and Prosperity Partnership. Essentially, Alberta and the United States are forging a cross-border energy alliance, a partnership that operates outside the direct control of the central government. The economic implications for Alberta are huge. The province's economy, which has been battered by years of low oil prices and federal energy policies, stands to gain billions in infrastructure investment and guaranteed export volumes. The deal is expected to create over 20,000 jobs during the construction phase and thousands more in long-term operations. For the people of Alberta, This is being framed as an act of economic survival, a necessary step to protect jobs and prosperity in a province that has long felt undervalued by the rest of Canada. The U.S. side of the deal is equally compelling. For President Trump's America, the pipeline offers a steady, reliable flow of affordable North American crude oil, which is seen as a more secure and cheaper alternative to oil from OPEC nations. With fuel prices always a major political issue and an election on the horizon, securing a stable energy supply from a trusted ally like Alberta is a strategic no-brainer. The Trump administration has not just given a green light to the project, they are reportedly embracing it with enthusiasm. The timing of this announcement is also critical. It comes at a moment when global energy markets are in flux, with geopolitical tensions threatening supply and OPEC nations cutting production. Alberta's leadership is framing this deal as a move toward energy independence, not just from federal control but from the volatility of foreign markets. They argue that by locking in direct access to U.S. refineries, they are creating a more stable and predictable future for their industry and their province. This situation has quickly become a defining moment in Canadian politics. It's a clear demonstration of the growing assertiveness of provinces in a federal system. Alberta, feeling its back against the wall, has taken a drastic step to secure its own future. The federal government, once seen as the ultimate authority, is now scrambling to respond to a move it never saw coming. The next few weeks and months will be a test of political will, legal jurisdiction, and national unity. Will the federal government attempt to stop the pipeline and risk a constitutional crisis, or will they be forced to concede, fundamentally altering the balance of power between Ottawa and the provinces? The questions are big, the stakes are high, and the answers will shape Canada for years to come. The political earthquake triggered by Alberta's direct pipeline deal with the U.S. is sending aftershocks across Canada, raising fundamental questions about the balance of power between the provinces and the federal government. This is not merely an economic agreement, but a profound statement on provincial autonomy and a challenge to the established order of Canadian federalism. The deal's implications are far-reaching, touching on legal precedent, national unity, and Canada's international standing on climate policy. It has become a fulcrum for long-simmering debates, pulling provinces into opposing camps and forcing a national conversation about what it means to be Canadian in the 21st century. At the heart of the matter is the constitutional division of powers. While the federal government has the exclusive jurisdiction over international trade and commerce, provinces can and do enter into commercial agreements with foreign partners, particularly at the sub-federal or state level. Alberta's Premier, Danielle Smith, has capitalized on this nuance, framing the deal as a commercial agreement with private investors and U.S. states rather than a formal treaty with the federal government in Washington. This legal strategy is designed to make it difficult for Ottawa to interfere. The federal government, in turn, is scrambling to find a legal basis to claim jurisdiction, with insiders reporting that they are exploring international trade agreements and environmental regulations as potential hooks to stall or block the project. This legal dance is setting the stage for a potential constitutional showdown, possibly ending up in the Supreme Court, a scenario that would have profound consequences for the future of federal-provincial relations. The deal's effect on provincial relations has been immediate and divisive. The response from other provinces has been a mixed bag, reflecting the regional fault lines that have long existed in Canada. Saskatchewan, a fellow resource-rich province, has come out in strong support, calling the deal a step toward energy independence, and hinting that it might follow suit with similar agreements. This signals a growing solidarity among Western provinces that feel their economic interests are being ignored by the federal government. On the other end of the spectrum are Quebec and British Columbia, which have blasted Alberta for undermining national unity and ignoring climate commitments. Leaders in these provinces are warning that if every province starts making side deals, federal authority could crack wide open. This highlights the deep ideological and economic divide between provinces that rely on resource extraction and those that prioritize a greener economy. The deal has also poured gasoline on the fire of Western alienation, a sentiment rooted in the belief that Ottawa treats Western provinces like an ATM for the rest of the country, cashing in on their resources without granting them political respect. For many in the West, this pipeline is more than an energy project. It's a statement of self-reliance. Economically, the agreement is a massive win for Alberta. The deal is expected to bring billions in new investment and create thousands of jobs, offering a much-needed boost to a provincial economy that has struggled for years. The province's ability to secure a new export route to the U.S. market without federal assistance is a significant move toward economic sovereignty. The deal is also a huge win for the United States, which gets a steady, secure supply of affordable crude from a trusted ally, reducing its dependence on more volatile foreign markets. For the U.S., this is a win-win situation that strengthens its energy security and provides a reliable economic partner. However, this economic win for Alberta comes at a cost for the federal government. The deal makes the Liberals look weaker and increasingly irrelevant in the eyes of many, particularly in the West. It also raises questions about their ability to manage the country's energy policy and economic future. The environmental implications of the deal are particularly contentious. The federal government has committed to ambitious climate goals under the Paris Agreement, including a significant reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. A new pipeline, which would facilitate the expansion of Alberta's oil sands, directly challenges these goals. Environmental groups like Greenpeace Canada and the David Suzuki Foundation are furious, arguing that Canada cannot claim global climate leadership while allowing provinces to cut backdoor oil deals. The deal puts the Liberals in a difficult position. Do they block the pipeline and risk further alienating the West, or do they allow it to proceed and shred their environmental credibility both at home and abroad? Alberta, for its part, is attempting to mitigate this criticism by pointing to advanced leak detection, carbon offsets, and downstream refining commitments that keep more profits in the province. They are selling the project as a necessary step for economic survival, not an act of environmental defiance. This situation has gone far beyond simple energy policy. It has become a national identity crisis. Provinces are openly questioning their relationship with the federal government, and old calls for greater autonomy are gaining new steam. The deal is a test case, with provinces across the country watching to see what happens. If Ottawa blinks and allows the deal to proceed, it could set a precedent that fundamentally rewrites the rules of Canadian federalism, empowering provinces to act on their own to secure their economic futures. If the federal government cracks down, it could trigger a constitutional crisis and further deepen the divisions that are already ripping the country apart. The ultimate question is whether Canada's federal system can adapt to this new reality, or if it will be torn asunder by the competing visions of its constituent parts. The federal government's reaction to the Alberta Pipeline Agreement was swift and predictably fraught with legal and political maneuvering. The initial response from Ottawa was a flurry of public statements, expressing a commitment to due process and environmental oversight. However, behind the scenes, a more urgent and complex strategy was clearly taking shape. The federal government has repeatedly argued that any project crossing provincial or international borders falls under its exclusive jurisdiction. This is a long-held constitutional position that has been tested in courts before. Alberta, under its premier, has consistently challenged this, asserting that provincial control over natural resources gives them the authority to make such deals, particularly when federal policy is perceived as hostile to their primary industry. The political discourse surrounding this has been intensely polarized. The federal government, along with its supporters, casts the Alberta government as reckless, short-sighted, and willing to put the nation's environmental commitments and international reputation at risk for a quick political win. They highlight the importance of the Federal Impact Assessment Act, which was designed to ensure large-scale projects consider not only environmental factors but also social and health impacts. Conversely, the Alberta government frames its actions as a necessary defense of provincial autonomy and economic self-determination. They portray the federal government as overreaching, detached from the economic realities of Alberta, and actively working to undermine the livelihoods of its citizens. The Premier has even invoked the concept of constitutional resistance, a phrase that suggests a willingness to use any legal and political means necessary to push back against what is seen as federal overreach. This rhetoric signals that the conflict is not merely about a single pipeline, but about the very balance of power within Canadian federalism. The legal dimension of this conflict is profound. The federal government has consistently maintained its authority over interprovincial and international trade and commerce, as well as its right to regulate projects that fall under its jurisdiction, citing previous Supreme Court rulings. Alberta, in turn, points to a different section of the Constitution, which grants provinces ownership and jurisdiction over their natural resources. Legal experts are divided on the exact outcome, but many agree that the case would likely end up in the Supreme Court of Canada, where a definitive ruling could reshape the relationship between the federal government and the provinces for decades to come. The stakes are immense, as a ruling in favor of Alberta could empower other provinces to pursue their own infrastructure projects and resource development without federal approval, potentially leading to a fragmentation of national economic policy. Conversely, a victory for the federal government could be seen as a serious blow to provincial autonomy, further fueling the sense of alienation in Alberta and other resource-rich provinces. The project itself is not without its own set of complexities and challenges. An Ontario government request for proposals for a feasibility study on a new west-east pipeline, which was initiated with the support of Alberta and Saskatchewan, highlights the broader political and economic goals of the provinces. This initiative is a clear signal that the three provinces are looking to reduce their reliance on the United States as an export market, especially in light of recent American tariff threats. The idea is to create a new energy corridor that would transport Western Canadian oil and natural gas to refineries in southern Ontario and potentially to tidewater ports for international export. This would be a massive undertaking, with an expected cost in the tens of billions of dollars, but its proponents argue it would create thousands of jobs and enhance Canada's energy security and economic self-reliance. This proposed east-west corridor is a stark counterpoint to the federal government's focus on a transition away from fossil fuels. The broader Canadian political landscape has also been significantly affected. Indigenous groups and environmental organizations have reacted with a mix of cautious support and strong opposition, reflecting the diverse perspectives within these communities. Some Indigenous groups, particularly those who have pursued ownership agreements or partnerships in energy projects, view the pipeline as a pathway to economic reconciliation and long-term financial independence. They have highlighted the job creation and revenue-sharing opportunities that come with such large-scale infrastructure projects. They argue that these partnerships allow them to be active participants in the economy and have a direct say in resource development on their traditional lands. Other Indigenous groups, along with a wide array of environmental organizations, have voiced fierce opposition. Their concerns are centered on the potential environmental risks, including oil spills, increased greenhouse gas emissions, and the impact on sensitive ecosystems. They contend that the project violates the principles of free, prior, and informed consent, and that it is inconsistent with Canada's climate change commitments. These groups have historically used legal challenges and protests to halt or delay projects, and it is likely they would do so again. From an economic perspective, the numbers at play are staggering. According to a report by the Alberta Energy Regulator, the value of Alberta's energy production surged in the last year, reaching a record of over $100 billion. This was partially driven by the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline, which allowed for increased exports at more favorable international prices. The report also notes that the oil and gas sector contributed approximately 8% of Canada's gross domestic product in 2023, and that the sector directly or indirectly employs hundreds of thousands of Canadians across the country. These figures are at the heart of the debate. Proponents of the Alberta deal argue that this is precisely the kind of economic engine Canada needs to thrive, especially in a period of economic uncertainty. They emphasize that the royalties and taxes generated by the energy sector provide crucial funding for public services both provincially and federally. Opponents of the pipeline and fossil fuel expansion, however, contend that these are short-term gains that ignore the long-term economic and environmental costs. They argue that the global move away from fossil fuels is an undeniable reality and that Canada should be investing in the clean energy economy of the future. They point to the enormous price tags of pipeline projects and the financial risks involved, citing the federal government's costly experience with the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. They advocate for investments in renewable energy such as a national electricity grid, which they say would create jobs, lower household costs, and reduce Canada's dependence on volatile energy markets. This division reflects a fundamental ideological split on Canada's economic path forward. Ultimately, the standoff between the Alberta government and the federal government represents a critical moment in Canadian history. It is a clash of legal interpretations, economic visions, and political identities. The outcome of this conflict will not only determine the fate of a single pipeline, but could also redefine the constitutional relationship between the provinces and the federal government, shape Canada's economic future, and influence its ability to meet its international climate obligations. The stakes are as high as they have ever been, and the resolution, whether through political compromise, legal rulings, or public pressure, will have profound implications for every Canadian.